Welcome to Power Backup's home video on getting to know MS-DOS. The purpose of this video is to introduce the novice PC user to the basic MS-DOS functions. This video has been designed with the beginner in mind, although many intermediate users will benefit from it also. If possible, this video should be played while sitting in front of your IBM PC or compatible computer with the following items present: your MS-DOS system diskette, 3 blank diskettes, a fine felt tip marker, and scratch paper. Before we can truly understand the functions of MS-DOS, we must first introduce ourselves to the computer's hardware. Hardware consists of the computer itself and all its physical contents: keyboard, floppy drive, hard drive, RAM memory, expansion boards, as well as any attachments connected to the computer, such as the display monitor, printers, and modems. Let's now discuss your PC's hardware, beginning with the CPU. The CPU, which stands for the Central Processing Unit, is the brain of the computer, and in the case of your PC, is a small electronic chip located inside the computer's main unit. The CPU directs all operations of the computer and interacts with the computer's peripherals, such as disk drives, printers, and modems. The CPU carries out its operations one instruction at a time, an instruction being the smallest unit of action the CPU can perform. Computer programs, or software, are nothing more than sequences of instructions designed to do a specific task, such as sending a document to a printer or sorting a mailing list. Next, let's discuss RAM memory. RAM is an acronym for Random Access Memory. This is the computer's internal memory used to hold data the computer is currently working on. Before a given program can be executed, it must first be read from a storage device, such as a floppy drive or hard drive, into RAM memory. The amount of RAM memory present in the computer is measured in bytes. Generally speaking, a single character, such as the letter H, will take up 1 byte of memory. Large amounts of memory are often measured in terms of kilobytes. A kilobyte is 1024 bytes, not 1000 bytes. This is due to the fact that computers use the base 2 or binary numbering system rather than the decimal system. The maximum amount of memory a computer can utilize is dependent on several different factors, such as the computer's internal design, the microprocessor it uses, the operating system it uses, and the characteristics of the particular software program being used all affect the amount of RAM that can be used by the computer. Most computers designed to be compatible with the IBM PC can utilize a maximum of 640K bytes of RAM. This is equal to 655,360 bytes of information. This is an ample amount of memory for most software programs. However, there are several manufacturers who offer add-on boards which allow you to access more memory than 640K bytes. RAM memory is also volatile, meaning that when the power is turned off for your computer, all the data currently in RAM memory will be lost. Therefore, any data the computer is working on that you wish to keep must be saved on a floppy diskette or hard disk before turning off the computer. It is also a very good idea, when possible, to save the information you're currently working on to your hard drive or floppy drive periodically. Saving your data every 10 or 20 minutes will ensure against data loss due to power blackouts, brownouts, or other unexpected mishaps. Next, let's discuss floppy disk drives. Nearly all computers have a floppy drive. It is the method most commonly used on PCs to store data permanently. Its name comes from the fact that it stores data on magnetically coated flexible disks. Because of this, it is very important to obey the following rules regarding handling the floppy diskettes. Do not bend or squash diskettes. Do not puncture diskettes. Do not write on diskettes with anything harder than a felt tip pen. Do not leave diskettes exposed to direct sunlight. Keep foreign matter from touching diskettes. Failure to observe these precautions is likely to result in loss of data stored on the diskette. The type of diskette used most commonly on PCs is the 5 1/4 inch size diskette just seen. These diskettes come in several different types. Single-sided diskettes can store 180K bytes of data, while double-sided diskettes can store twice that, 360K bytes of data. Many IBM AT-compatible computers can also use special, more expensive, high-capacity diskettes which can store 1.2 megabytes which is equal to 1.2 million bytes of data. As we said before, nearly all personal computers have a floppy drive. Some PCs have 2 floppy drives. Having 2 floppy drives can make copying files and running programs much more convenient for the end user. The only drive on a single drive computer or the first drive on a 2-drive system is referred to as the A drive. The second drive on a 2-drive system is the B drive. Another type of disk drive available is a fixed disk, more commonly known as hard drive or hard disk. These devices offer the advantages of very high storage capacity and almost immediate data access. For example, a 20 megabyte hard disk can store the equivalent of more than 50 standard 360K floppy diskettes. It can access data 5 to 10 times faster than a floppy drive. For individuals or businesses that need to store large amounts of information, a fixed disk offers a superior and more economical method of data storage than floppy disks. The hard disk on a PC is usually designated as the C drive.
Now that we have familiarized ourselves with the basic hardware involved in using our PCs, let's begin to work with MS-DOS. DOS is an acronym for the computer's disk operating system. DOS is a program stored on a floppy disk or hard disk, which contains the instructions your computer needs to access programs and data stored on a disk. While there are several different types of DOS available for PCs, the most commonly used operating system is MS-DOS. The MS stands for Microsoft Corporation, the developers of this particular DOS. PC-DOS refers to an edition of MS-DOS licensed by Microsoft to IBM for use on PCs made by IBM. MS-DOS and PC-DOS are virtually identical, and in almost every instance, software that will run on MS-DOS will run on PC-DOS, and vice versa. However, some computer manufacturers, Hyundai and Compaq, for example, tailor MS-DOS to their computers, and their customized versions of DOS may not work properly on other brands of computers, so be cautious of using a version of DOS on your system other than the one which was sold with the computer. Let's start out by turning on the power to our computer. Then inserting our DOS system diskette into drive A with the label facing up. Close the drive door only after the computer has been powered up. This will avoid possible damage to the diskette in case of a power surge upon power up. After you have turned on the power and closed the drive door, the drive light on the front of drive A will be lit. This indicates that the system is reading the information from the diskette into RAM memory. This is known as booting up your system. Once the system has booted, it will prompt you to type in the correct date and time. This will set the time and date internally for DOS. But note that the date and time are held in the computer's RAM memory, so powering down the computer will cause the date and time to be lost. For this reason, many computers have what is known as a battery-backed clock calendar, which keeps the date and time current while the computer's power is off. After you have entered in the date and time, MS-DOS displays a sign-on message, which usually tells what version of DOS you are running and which manufacturer's license of DOS it is. Below the sign-on message is the DOS prompt. This prompt indicates to the user that an MS-DOS command may be entered, and also indicates the current working disk drive. In this case, the A prompt tells you that the A drive is the current drive. Next to the prompt on the screen is a small blinking rectangle known as the cursor, which simply shows you where on the screen you will be typing. Let us now discuss MS-DOS files. All usable information stored on a disk is stored in files. A file is simply a collection of data that is given a single name. A file might contain, for example, text, spreadsheet data, or program instructions directly executable by the computer. Files are organized into directories. A directory is simply a collection of files and/or other directories that is given a single name. The entire directory structure may be viewed as a tree of directories. You can travel around the directory structure to access files in any directory. The main directory on any disk drive is called the root directory. It is from the root directory that all other directories can be accessed. Also, the root directory holds the DOS system files necessary for booting the system. In the example shown, the C's drive root directory contains the command.com file and 2 subdirectories, the Lotus and WordStar subdirectories. The Lotus directory contains 2 files, lotus.exe, and print.exe, and one subdirectory named Files. The Files subdirectory contains 3 files: accounts.dat, accounts.bak, and taxes.dat. The WordStar directory contains 2 files, memo1.txt and memo1.bak, along with one subdirectory, MailList, which contains 2 more files, la.dat and sfv.dat. This is one example of how a directory structure may be arranged, but files may be organized into subdirectories in whatever fashion the user desires. However, for ease of use, it is best to keep related files together in the same directory. A file is referred to by its file specification, or file spec for short. A file spec consists of 4 parts. First, the drive letter where the file is to be found, followed by a colon. The drive specification is optional, and if it is omitted, DOS will look for the file on the default drive. Second, the name of the directory where the file is to be found. If this begins with a backslash, the computer will search the root directory for the specified subdirectory. If it does not begin with a backslash, the computer will search the current directory for the specified subdirectory name. Third, the file name of up to 8 letters and/or numbers. The file name is the only part of the file spec that must be present in order for DOS to access a file. Finally, the optional file name extension of up to 3 letters and/or numbers. If included, the extension must be preceded by a period or dot. In addition to letters and digits, MS-DOS also allows the use of the special characters shown here in directory names, file names, and file extensions. The extension part of a file name is usually used to indicate what type of data is contained in a file. Shown here is a list of commonly used file name extensions. .com and .exe files contain program instructions executable by the computer's CPU. Simply put, these files contain programs. .txt and .doc files are text or document files. For example, a resume typed up using a word processing program might be stored in a file called resume.doc. .bak, backup or duplicate of another file. For example, memo1.bak might be a backup of a file called memo1.txt. .dat, this could be any sort of data file. For example, a file containing data on all of a company's accounts might be placed in a file called accounts.dat. Now that we know what files are, let's start using some of the features of DOS. Begin by asking DOS to see the directory of files on the current disk drive. You type dir on the keyboard and press the return key. You must press the return key after entering an MS-DOS command to tell the computer to execute that command. You will notice that all the files on the disk will scroll up on the screen, making it difficult to find a specific file in a large directory. To view a directory, a page at a time, you type dir/p and press return. This will scroll the files up a page at a time, allowing you to press any key to view the next page of files. Looking at the first page of files, you will notice the first file name is command com. This is usually the first file on your DOS diskette, or in the root directory on your hard disk. This file contains the software that executes DOS commands, as well as some other information used by the computer to access information from the disk. A disk without this file cannot be used to boot or start up the computer. Also notice that in the directory listing, there is no dot or period separating the file name from its extension. Although when we give the computer a file specification, we must separate the file name from the extension with a period. DOS does not display the dot on the screen in a directory listing. Following the file name and extension of each file, DOS displays the size of the file in bytes and the date and time the file was last modified. The 2 commands we have just used to list the file on a disk drive, dir and dir/p, are known as internal MS-DOS commands. Internal commands are part of the command.com file we viewed in our directory. Since command.com is loaded into the computer's RAM memory upon booting the system, these commands are always available to the user at the MS-DOS prompt. MS-DOS external commands are programs which are stored on either the system diskette, the utilities diskette included with the system diskette, or on the hard disk. If your system does not have a hard disk, the system or utility disk, or a copy of it, should be in your A drive. Let's start out by using the following external MS-DOS commands. Format initializes diskettes for storage. Disk copy duplicates contents of one diskette on another. Check disk checks diskette for errors in storage capacity. First, we will use the format command to initialize a blank diskette. The syntax of the format command is format D:/S, where D is the letter of the drive containing the diskette to be initialized and is usually A or B, and the /S is an option which will be discussed shortly. If your system does not have a hard disk, start by getting a directory of your system diskette. Remember to use the /P option so the listing doesn't scroll by too fast. Make sure the file format.com is present on your system disk. If you don't see the file format.com in the directory listing, remove your system disk and insert your utilities diskette into the A drive, and look for the format.com file on that diskette. Once you have verified that the format program is present, enter in the command to format the blank disk. Format A:, and press the return key. When the computer asks you to, place a blank diskette in the A drive. Make sure to insert the diskette with the label facing up. After you have the new diskette in place, press any key to begin formatting. The formatting process will take approximately 2 minutes. While our disk is formatting, let's discuss what formatting actually does. When you first purchase a box of diskettes, you must prepare the diskettes to receive MS-DOS files. This consists of placing any empty directory area on the disk and scanning the disk for defects. This is all accomplished by the format.com program. A word of caution though, you can format a diskette that already has files stored on it, thus destroying all the existing files. So use the dir command to make sure a diskette doesn't have any valuable files on it before you initialize it. The format command can also initialize a hard drive, so make sure when formatting a diskette, you have also specified the correct drive letter. If a destination drive has not been specified, that is, if you typed in just format instead of format A:, the format program may, depending on your version of DOS, default to the current drive, resulting in loss of all data and files on your hard disk. However, it will always ask you to confirm the format before it can damage any data. So if you watch the computer's prompts carefully, you won't lose any data inadvertently. When formatting of your diskette is completed, MS-DOS will display some information at the bottom of your screen. The first line indicates that the format has been completed. The next 2 lines display the total disk space in bytes and the number of bytes available to the user. Notice that the 2 numbers are the same because no files have been stored on the diskette. Finally, DOS will ask you if you wish to format another disk. Type N and press return. This will return you back to the MS-DOS prompt. Now, hold down the Control and Alternate keys at the left end of your keyboard and press the Delete key at the right side. This will reset the computer, causing it to clear the screen and begin its rebooting procedure. In a few seconds, the computer should attempt to read the newly formatted diskette in the A drive and print an error message such as non-bootable disk, non-system disk, or disk error, replace and strike any key. This is a message the computer displays when you are trying to boot up from a defective diskette, or, as is the case now, one that is missing the required DOS program files. To initialize a diskette and place these DOS program files on the diskette, the /S option is required in the format command. If your system does not have a hard disk, place your system diskette back in the A drive and once again reboot the system using the Control Alternate Delete key combination. For hard drive systems, open the A drive door and reboot the system using the Control Alternate Delete sequence. Once the system has booted up, press Return in response to the date and time queries and type in the following command: Format A:/S and press the return key. Remove your system diskette from drive A and insert a blank diskette into the A drive. Now press the return key to begin formatting. When the disk has been formatted, the computer will copy the DOS system files onto the newly formatted disk. These files consist of 2 invisible files which do not show up in directory listings, plus the file command.com, which was discussed earlier. When everything is finished, DOS will display the total amount of space on the disk, along with the amount of available disk space. This time, the amount of free space is less than the total space on the diskette, because the 3 DOS system files are now occupying room on the disk. Now reboot the computer with the diskette just formatted in drive A. After several seconds, we shall see the results of the /S option in the format command. The computer will be able to boot or load DOS from the diskette. At the DOS command prompt, enter the command dir. The directory will show only one file, command.com, as being present on the disk. The other 2 DOS files, being invisible, do not show up. Now remove the diskette from the A drive and, using a felt tip pen, write formatted diskette with system on the label. This will remind us later that the diskette has been initialized and can be booted from. Now that we have seen how to format a blank diskette, let's discuss the disk copy command. This external MS-DOS command is used to make an exact duplicate of a diskette, usually for backup purposes. The syntax of the disk copy command is disk copy D1:D2:, where D1 represents the drive letter of the disk drive containing the source diskette, the diskette to be duplicated, and D2 represents the destination drive letter, the diskette to be copied onto. If your system does not have a hard disk, first get a directory of your system diskette and make sure the file diskcopy.com is present on the disk. If it is not, remove your system disk and insert your utilities diskette into the A drive and look for the file diskcopy.com file on that diskette. Once you have verified that the disk copy program is present, enter the following command: disk copy A:/B:. If you have 2 floppy drives, insert another blank diskette, not the one we just initialized using the format command, into your B drive. If you have only 1 floppy drive, please stand by. DOS will prompt you to swap diskettes when the time comes. If the diskcopy.com file was found on a diskette other than your system diskette, insert your system disk in the A drive when the computer asks you to insert the source diskette. It will take 2 or 3 minutes to make a duplicate of your system disk, so we'll take time out now to discuss a few unanswered questions.
Christine, don't I have to format the diskette before I copy onto it?
No, the disk copy program automatically formats the destination diskette before placing information on it.
Will I be able to boot from this diskette once the disk copy program is run?
Yes, if the diskette you are copying from was bootable, which in this case it is, disk copy duplicates the entire contents of the disk, including the 3 DOS files which make the diskette a system or bootable disk. If you have a single floppy system, disk copy will ask you to swap diskettes during the course of the duplication. If so, remember that your system diskette is the source diskette, and the blank diskette is the destination diskette. When the disk copy program has finished, press N to indicate that we do not want to make another copy. Place the newly created system diskette, the one we just copied onto, into drive A and take a directory of it. The listing of files on this diskette should appear exactly the same as that on the diskette we copied from. It is a very wise idea to keep backup copies of all important files and diskettes. Doing this will protect you later in the event an accident occurs and your master diskette or hard disk gets damaged. For example, if some harm were to befall our system diskette now, we still have our duplicate disk, which can be used in its place. If you don't have a second original DOS system diskette or utilities diskette containing additional programs and files, please stop this tape now and make a backup copy of it using the disk copy command. The final external MS-DOS command we will learn is the checkdisk.com program. The function of this program is to check the current disk drive for errors and disk capacity. Let's check the system backup diskette in drive A. The syntax of the checkdisk command is checkdisk D:, where D: represents the optional drive letter specification. Enter in the following command, checkdisk. DOS will access the current disk drive for a few seconds and then report any errors found on the disk, as well as the total amount of space on the disk, the amount of space used up by DOS system files and user files, and the amount of free space available on the disk. It also shows the total amount of RAM memory installed in your system and the amount of RAM memory available for use by user programs. As stated before, the three MS-DOS commands we just discussed, format, disk copy, and checkdisk, are all external commands. This means that these functions are not all loaded into memory when the system is booted up. That is, these commands are not contained in the command.com file. Therefore, an executable file such as format.com, diskcopy.com, or checkdisk.com must be present on the diskette you are using, or on your hard disk in order to execute each of these commands. We will now demonstrate a few internal MS-DOS commands. These commands are contained in the command.com file and can be executed at any time, regardless of whether the system diskette is present or not. We will cover MS-DOS commands shown here. Copy. Copies a file or files to a different directory or drive. Erase or DEL. Erases one or more files from a disk drive. Make directory or MD. Creates a subdirectory. Remove directory or RD. Removes a subdirectory. Change directory or CD. Changes the current subdirectory. Rename or REN. Changes the name of a file. Now place the diskette that you labeled earlier, formatted with system, in the A drive and close the drive door. Reboot your computer using the Control-Alternate-Delete key combination. Press the return key in response to DOS's requests for the current date and time. Bring up a listing of the files on the diskette by entering the dir command. The only file name that should be printed is command.com. Remove the recently formatted diskette from drive A. And place your MS-DOS system disk, or a copy of it, into the A drive. If your system has two floppy drives, insert the empty formatted diskette you just removed into the B drive. Now enter the following command, copyformat.com B:. This tells DOS to copy the file format.com to the B drive. Two important points should be brought up here. First, notice that on a single floppy drive computers, DOS is able to simulate a second floppy drive, the B drive. When DOS needs to use a diskette in the B drive and there is no B drive, DOS asks you to place the B diskette into drive A. Then if DOS needs to access the A diskette, it will ask you to put that diskette back into the A drive. Second, note that the copy operation does not remove the file from drive A. It just creates a copy of it on your drive B diskette. Some common formats of the copy command are copy file 1, file 2, duplicate file 1 as file 2, copy file 1 D:, make a duplicate of file 1 on drive D, copy file 1 / subdirectory, make a duplicate of file 1 in a new directory. Now let's switch over to drive B to view our newly copied file. To change the default drive to drive B, enter the following command, B:, and notice how the DOS prompt changed from A or C to B, reflecting the change in the default disk drive. Use the dir command to look at the directory of the diskette on the B drive. In addition to the command.com file that was placed on the diskette when we formatted it, the file format.com that we just copied now shows up also. Thus, we have verified that the copy command did indeed work. Now let's switch back to the A drive. At the DOS prompt, enter the following command, md DOS files. DOS should return with only a prompt. Now type dir. Notice the entry reading DOS files dir. This indicates a subdirectory named DOS files on the disk. Now type cd DOS files. This just changed the A drive's current directory from the root directory to the DOS files directory. To verify this, enter the command dir. The computer will print directory of a:\DOS files and show no files in this directory. Notice, however, the two entries reading .dir and .dir. The first entry is present only in subdirectory listings, not root directory listings. The second entry represents the directory 1 level up from the current directory. This will be explained shortly. Now enter the following command. Copy a:\format.com a:\DOS files and press the return key. What this command does is copy the file format.com from the root directory of the diskette in your A drive to the DOS files directory on the A drive. If you now get a directory listing, you will see that the format.com file has been duplicated in the DOS files subdirectory. Now enter the following command, cd ... and press the return key. DOS will respond with just a prompt, as usual. What this command did was change the current subdirectory. Using the ... symbol tells DOS to move up one level in the directory tree. So, it changed the current directory from DOS files to the root directory. To verify this, enter in the command cd, followed by pressing the return key. This causes DOS to print the name of the current directory. In this case, a:\/ represents the A drive's root directory. To verify that we have gone into the root directory, enter in dir and press the return key. Now, let's discuss the erase command. The erase command, or alternatively, the del command, performs the function of removing one or more files from a diskette or hard disk. The syntax of the command is erase file name or del file name. Now enter the following command, del \DOS files \format.com and press the return key. This command removes the file format.com from the DOS files subdirectory on the current disk. To verify that the file was erased, enter the command dir DOS files, followed by the return key. The computer should show the DOS files directory as being empty. The next MS-DOS internal command we will learn today is the rd command, which is used to remove a subdirectory from a disk. The syntax of the rd command is rd subdirectory. Enter the following command at the DOS prompt, rd DOS files, and press the return key. This removed the DOS files subdirectory from the current disk drive. Note that if we had not first deleted the file format.com from that subdirectory, DOS would not have allowed us to remove the DOS files directory. To verify that the directory was indeed removed, get a directory listing of the current disk drive, and note that the entry reading DOS files dir is no longer present. The final MS-DOS internal command we will learn today is the rename command, often abbreviated REN. The REN command is used to change the name of a file. The syntax of the REN command is REN filename1, filename2, where filename1 is the file's current name and filename2 is what the file's name is to be changed to. Now get a directory listing of the current disk drive. Notice the file format.com present in the directory listing. Now enter in REN format.com fmt.com and press the return key. The computer will simply display a DOS prompt. Now get another directory listing, and this time notice that instead of the format.com file, an entry reading fmt.com is shown. Thus, we have verified that the rename command changed the name of format.com to fmt.com. This concludes the software portion of the Power Backups home video seminar on Getting to Know MS-DOS.
Let's now briefly review what has been covered thus far. We now know that hardware consists of the computer and all its physical contents and its peripherals, such as printers and modems, and that computer programs, called software, are nothing more than the computer instructions stored on a disk drive. We also learned that the computer's operating system, MS-DOS, is one example of a software program, and that DOS provides an interface between the user and the hardware of the computer. Now, to reinforce what we have just learned, let's take a short self-test. Please make sure you have a pencil and scratch paper nearby. If your VCR has a pause feature, you may want to pause after each question to give yourself an ample amount of time to answer the question. Question number 1. I just purchased a box of floppy diskettes, and I want to copy information onto them. What must I do first? Question number 2. I want to make one of the diskettes I purchased bootable. How would I do this? Question number 3. I just purchased a new software program, and I want to make an exact copy of it. What external command would I use? Question number 4. If I'm working in the root directory of my hard disk or floppy drive, and I want to create a subdirectory called Accounts, how would I do this? Question number 5. Now that I have created a subdirectory, Accounts, I want to copy a file, accounts.exe, into it. How would I do this? In question number 1, we purchased a box of diskettes and wanted to copy information onto them. In this case, you would use the format command. This would place an empty directory on the disks and scan the disks for defects. Question number 2. We wanted to make one of the diskettes in question number 1 bootable. In this case, you would use the format command with the /s option. This would transfer the needed DOS system files to the disk root directory, in turn making the disk bootable. Question number 3. You just purchased a new software program and you want to make an exact copy of it. You would use the disk copy command. This makes an exact duplicate copy of any diskette. Question number 4. We were working in the root directory of our hard disk or floppy drive and wanted to create a subdirectory called Accounts. To do this, you would use the make directory command. In this case, you would enter in md accounts. This would create a subdirectory Accounts in the root directory of our hard disk or floppy drive. Question number 5. We wanted to copy the accounts.exe file into our accounts subdirectory. To do this, you would use the copy command. To copy the accounts.exe file into the accounts subdirectory, you would enter in copy accounts.exe \accounts. This concludes the self-test portion of the Getting to Know MS-DOS home video. We hope you found the video to be beneficial in the everyday use of your PC.